I'd like you to talk about some of your experiences with libraries, because I know that some of your research must have been done in them, and we're in one right now. So why don't you give us a little bit of a history of library and you?
I actually spent a great deal of time working on my book in libraries. One, because it offers a very quiet, distraction-free place for me. I'm prone to distractions. If I try to do anything at home, I'm probably going to pick up my guitar and waste a lot of time. So the environment that the library offers was key to me. Also, the reference section, the microfilm, all that stuff was very important to me. And any local and research into local history, you're going to find a lot of information at the libraries. I primarily worked in the library on the South Branch Library of Lorain's library system, and that was kind of fitting to me because I spent a great deal of my childhood in that. Not that particular building since they rebuilt it, but in that branch of the library. So that was actually pretty nice for me.
Yeah, if I go back in time, when I was 10 years old, my grandmother gave me an Agatha Christie book. Now, compare an Agatha Christie book to kids' books, and my mind was blown that a book could exist like this. And she said, well, if you have a library card, Agatha has actually written lots of books. And I'm thinking there's more books like this? So I went to the library and I found out you had to be 12 to go to that part of the library, and I was 10. So she told me to go home and get my dad, and they sat down and talked to me about responsible choosing of books. And she said she could tell that I was not going there to try to get dirty pictures or whatever maybe they didn't want children to see. And I remember her, and her name was Nancy, Lorain Public Library. And I looked, and I'm like, those are all Agatha Christie? And then she says, now I want to show you this. Have you ever heard of Perry Mason? And I'm like, all these books are about... So it just blew my mind. The same library, if you fast forward by about, 15 years, 20 years, I guess more like 20, I got my first book contract, and I was on my way. It was about the boomerang throwers around the world. And it just so happened that as I'm driving the 2 blocks to the library called my house for me to ask a question about freelance writing. And my husband said, well, she's actually on her way to the library. She just signed a contract about a book about boomerangs. So they decided to surprise me. And when I walked in the front door, they handed me a stack of boomerang books and said, here you go. I'm like, now that is amazing. I didn't even have to tell you what I wanted. And still to this day, I go to that library, other libraries. Libraries are like my second home. I feel as comfortable there as I do in my home. So it's been wonderful.
Boy, it's funny. I would say libraries had an absolutely huge impact on me as a person and as a writer, but somewhat ironically, the 2 books that I've written, I never went to the library once for either one. My first book was a memoir. I was actually sort of ghostwriting it, but the Mark Wise, who had Wise Advertising, hired me to write his memoir because he had had a really serious stroke and couldn't do it himself. And so originally my name wasn't going to be on the book, but he ended up dying a few months later. So his wife said, well, everyone's going to know Mark didn't write this, so they put my name on the book. So I had to write it in his voice. But anyway, it was based on time I spent with him, interviews I did with him, interviews I did with, like, the Smuckers, Tim and Richard Smuckers, because they came up with a name like Smuckers, Wise Advertising, Chris Connor from Sherwin-Williams, just people who he had worked with. So I didn't really need to do any historic research. I had it all from his archive. Yeah, it was all, and the same with Shattering Silences. I was out there doing ride-alongs with, sex crimes guys, and so I never used the library for either one of those, but libraries were absolutely one of the reasons I'm a writer, is because I love books, and became a freelancer because I looked at it as sort of a living university, and if I wanted to learn about something, I could go out there and experience it, or meet Tom Hanks, or jump out of an airplane, or whatever it was that I wanted to do, watch brain surgery. So that's really how I use freelancing, is to experience the world and learn about it. But there have been numerous times when I've been nose deep in a book or microfiche projector. And so, yeah, libraries are absolutely critical.